Hello and greetings, everybody who is out there in the galaxies, in the earth, and wherever you are right now. I am Soulstar. This is going to be a new episode for the Spreaker.com app, but also for Spotify for podcasters. So for those of you who do not know who I am, I'll say from the Spotify family, I am what you would call a soul star seed or a star seed soul. What is a star seed soul? I'm sure most of you are aware of what that is, at least in our generation, millennials and those behind us. We are born into the human experience. We are more than likely not from this local 3D space. Most of us are from other galaxies, and this is more than likely our first human experience that we are actually having on Earth. So we come here very empathic. We come here with wisdom already within us that we probably gained, eons ago. And we come here to experience human life so that we can, make more meaning to it, to help and assist the human experience and the humans within the experience themselves. So that is a star seed or star seed soul. I just want to introduce myself to, completely in who I am. And that's, part of whom I am. I am also a natural born intuitive. Most of us are naturally born intuitive and psychic and all that good stuff. I am also bornly highly empathic, and I could be very sensitive as well, very sensitive, empathic person. I am a Pisces moon, so that means I'm super, super sensitive and highly empathic. So sometimes that means I need a lot of space to myself, and I really enjoy having that space to myself. People very close to me, relatives and friends of mine, they'll tell you that if I don't answer the phone or if I'm just not in the mood to talk, I am not going to be in the mood to talk. And that just means I just need to be, in my space of being and, just give myself, the opportunity to be in my own peace. To be honest, I've always enjoyed being in my alone time and just enjoying my own company. It's good to enjoy your own company. Some people really can't be within their own company after a while. It gets very depressing for them, and they need to, be around other people. So, with that being said, I'm going to talk about what's going on in upstate New York here before I get started. For those in the Western New York area, upstate New York, apparently there is a wildfire going on in the Canada region. So if you notice that smoky scent, kind of like if somebody's giving a bonfire, except you realizing now this can't be no bonfire. If I just left, from way on the other side of town and I'm smelling it way out here in the suburbs, or, even probably for some people in the country, then you're kind of like, okay, this is not just a bonfire. So it is a wildfire going on in Canada. And apparently it's just now hitting the ground levels, apparently here in the upstate area. So just be careful. Don't go outside too much. And if you go outside, just go handle your business and come back inside. Don't do too much strenuous work from people that have asthma and heart disease and just health issues, period, that could affect your breathing. But anyone in general, just try not to spend too much time outside because this is hazardous air. So I just want to put that out there. Just be safe and be careful and be cautious, because that in itself, is frightening. Okay, so are you all ready to go a bit beyond with me? So this is the portion of my show where I step into my galactic archetype, which is the Beyond 191,000. What is the Beyond 191,000? He or she or they or them, they are a galactic being who is able to be almost like a transformer and take you into deep mysticisms of the galactic nature, something beyond the 3D realm, something beyond what we are able to grasp. Just something way further, something beyond fifth dimensional, even if you will. So this is the part of the show where I want to reach you more so in the areas of the conscious, right? So I've titled this Losing Your Mind to Expand Consciousness. Now, what do I mean by that? Your mind could technically never be lost because we are part of the one super conscious mind of the infinite one. So even those who deal with, let's say, cerebral palsy, autism, mentally ill people, they still have a mind, because if their mind was not capable or gone or lost, they would not be able to breathe. They would not be able to function. They would be a vegetable. They would need to be put on life support, so to speak. So you never really lose your mind. What really can happen to some people is a bit of a chemical imbalance, which naturally some of us are born with a chemical imbalance to the brain, especially if you are someone, who has done drugs and unfortunately you just got a hold of something really bad and you went on a bad acid trip. And what's really happened is you have, consciously speaking, gotten lost in a state of consciousness that you cannot come back from. You may be stuck in a different dimension consciously. Some people, you'll notice, especially the homeless population, especially those who were in Vietnam, they may be walking around and they're still thinking that they're on the battlefield, or they're still, within the Vietnam War. And those kind of people, they are stuck in a state of consciousness that has not caught up with the present, right? So you don't actually ever really lose your mind. It's just that you probably lose a state of the now or reality, right? So I'm going to give you a story, a true story about me. Most of my episodes, I do give you, I share with you my life stories and put insight to them. And also, I do my research on different subjects that I may talk about. And that's what podcasting is. So, growing up for me, in high school, I'll say, those years were very, very rough. I had come into high school. I was enjoying being able to be free. I had been inspired by an episode of Queer as Folk. I don't know if you've ever watched the original Queer as Folk, but I know some of you have seen the revamped Queer as Folk. And that show, I'll be honest, when I started as a young boy, 12 years old, it was just for me to watch all the eye candy. And that was really, really why I had originally started looking at it. I'll be honest, and I'll say that, as a 12-year-old, you probably shouldn't have been watching something as revealing, because there were very sexual scenes. But as I got older and I was going through a lot of a depression, and in 7th and 8th grade, I was realizing that my body was no longer the body that I was used to when I was under 10 years old, where I thought I liked girls. And I didn't realize that I just thought that they still were pretty and they're very attractive. I was starting to have, thoughts about, the boys at school. So this episode of Queer as Folk, and I don't want to give it a spoiler alert, but this is a spoiler alert. So for those who don't want to hear the spoiler alert, you might want to skip a little bit. So the episode is a fundraiser to stop Proposition 14, which in real life was actually something that they were trying to put into place. That pretty much was going to take away every single right that someone from the LGBTQ plus community had. Like, you were going to not be able to do anything that was part of your liberation and as an American citizen. So the episode, they're doing a fundraiser to pretty much, fundraise to, anyone who would become part of that to stop this. And in the midst of this fundraiser, a bomb goes off and it kills many. And this is a very prophetic episode, actually, because many of these situations had began to occur, with many devastations over time that have attacked the LGBTQ plus community. And it was like a major prophecy. And I remember watching that episode and watching the rest of the 2 episodes that were left. And I just remember that last final scene where Brian and Michael are dancing on the dance floor in this bombed up, destroyed club. And even though it's been destroyed, they're dancing and they're realizing that the beat still is going to go on. They may have tried to destroy us, but we're going to continue to go on. And that really inspired me to be a proud Black queer man. And I was going to, go into high school being free and liberated to be just that. But unfortunately, my plans changed because my sister and we went to the same school. And that devastated me because I was just like, wow, everybody, I don't really get to be myself. But what was more devastating was the fact that by my 10th grade year, I was already being told by my principal and my guidance counselor that I wasn't going to graduate. They were telling me this at, 15, 16 years old, barely. And when you're that young and someone takes away that moment from you, you're like, so you guys are pretty much telling me that I'm not going to graduate and you want me to drop out and go to an alternative school, basically. And I kind of fought. I was like, no, I'm not doing that. And each year they would try to get me to do this and pretty much tell me like, you might as well give it up. And so finally I went to school and one of the teachers was giving me my exam, like I think it was like a major exam that the seniors take. And she stopped me literally in the middle of the exam and told me to go home. And that kept me very uninspired. I was very depressed. And I went home and I did what she said and waited till January of 2009. I think it was literally the same day as the inauguration for Barack Obama, to be exact. And it was like a bittersweet day. And I just remember being kind of relieved because I was like, they didn't want me in that school anyway. And it was confirmed to me by, teachers outside of the school that they were ready to get me out of that school because of the funding. They didn't want to fund for IEP students, and they didn't want to fund for many other kinds of students at that school. They put all the funding towards sports. Yeah, that happened. So, I went through a lot within the 2 years after that. I would, end up on drugs. I would end up walking the streets with prostitutes who, to be honest, I felt more happy with because they embraced me. They were the first set of people that I told I was gay, until, finally I got out of that world. And I think after that, I was a little damaged. And although I tried getting my life, moving forward, as it was, before all the dark times, when you are going around here, repressing who you are, and you've gone through the experiences of drug use, and nobody has talked to you about that. You haven't spoken with a psychiatrist or a therapist about those things, and you try to go on and ignore those things, but those things are still deep, deep, deep within your consciousness, and they're deep under the surface and many layers within you. We went to an amazing family reunion in Hartford, Connecticut, and we had come back. I was so happy. I was in such a great mood, but it seemed like about 2-3 weeks after that, I started having these episodes and hallucinations to a point where I started to have an anxiety attack and panic attack, really, ultimately. And I just remember throwing everything around the room, damaging everything, ripping off all my posters. And my mother, she rushes in the room because I had been having these hallucinations and these episodes for like 2 weeks, and nobody was really able to really figure out what was happening. And finally, I remember my mom just asked, like, what is going on? What is wrong? And I just remember just bursting out, I'm gay. And she looked for a moment and she said, yeah, I know that, but I'm trying to figure out why are you, throwing everything around, like, what is going on? And then I remember my sister crying and just calling, you know, the ambulance and you know, being a good Samaritan to make sure that I got the help that I needed. And my mom, she's so cute. She was just like, you still love women, right? And I was like, yeah, Mom, why would I not love a woman? I think some people think that gay men don't like women. I don't know why. I think they feel that we're jealous of women for some odd reason. You know, that's just not, you know, educating yourself enough, or speaking probably with the gay man, or, you know, about, you know, how we feel emotionally. We still love women, you know, just because, you know, we're attracted to men doesn't mean that we don't love women. Obviously we love women. We embrace femininity, and some of us are female impersonators, you know, and we enjoy glamour, and we embrace women, because otherwise we wouldn't, you know, it would be just a bunch of toxic ass gay masculine men walking around here, which, to be honest, some of them do exist. And that's no disrespect to my community. But yeah, I had got the treatment that I needed. When I had been going through a lot of mental frustration, not being able to be who I wanted to be. And I actually had another same incident the year after. This happened back to back. And it was because I literally had to lose the mind that I thought was mine, in order for me to be able to hear my own true inner thoughts, the thoughts that were already there, but I was afraid to express them freely, because before I could even find happiness in school, I was, you know, being disappointed and told to drop out. And on top of that, not being able to embrace the person that I wanted and thought I was going to be able to embrace in school. High school is one of those years where you really start to figure out who you are. You're happy. There's prom, graduation, spirit week each year. I didn't have those things. I was very depressed. I missed about 47 days of the school year in about, I think, 10 or 11, my 10th or 11th year. And I didn't go to school, and I was put on pins and everything. And I had to, you know, kind of deal with that. And it got to a point where I did try my best to go to school, and the judge was just like, listen, you're a great kid and you don't really do anything. It's really up to you ultimately, you know, to make the right decisions in life. And I think in that moment, even he was aware that there was nothing really wrong, that clearly, you know, it's up to me to figure out who I want to be in life. When, you know, and I was only 17, 18 years old, you know, and he really couldn't, you know, do anything, because I wasn't running away. I wasn't, you know, the type of kid that got into trouble. You know, getting my heart broken is what led me to going into someone else's world, which is how I got into drugs, because I was looking for love. Most people who are in the streets, they are looking for love, and they find it, rather it's a gang, rather it's someone they do drugs with, because it numbs the pain. And ultimately you're looking for something that you feel, you know, part of, that you feel connected to. This is how it is easy for these young Kia girls and Kia boys to be impacted by the things they see on social media and what everybody else is doing, because they're trying to feel part of something, because they haven't found meaning yet. And this is ultimately where, you know, some parents, I'm not saying that all these parents are not doing their job with these kids, because I'm sure that some of them have done what they knew how to do with these kids. But sometimes when you're trying to find meaning in life, and social media is there, trendy things are there, your environment is there, what else have you found to make meaning? That's something that you have to find within yourself, and you have to make, you know, mistakes, and you have to lose what you thought you knew. You know, the only thing that I was really losing when I went into, you know, this moment of a mental breakdown, I was losing what everybody else wanted me to be. I was losing somebody else's perspective of what's right, what's wrong, you know, what's good, what's bad. You know, when you're like 9 and 10 years old, already you're being told what's not real anymore, what you thought was real. You're being taught about racism. You're being taught about how they look and view LGBTQ plus people. You know, you're being taught by somebody else's perspectives who may perceive these things differently. And as an empathic child, it's even harder, because then that's how you develop the illusions of being someone else. You start to create this, and this is how you become neurotic, and you start to kind of create your own archetype, which there's nothing wrong with creating your own archetype, you know, as long as you have many different aspects of yourself that you embrace. But what happens is you start to believe these things truly to be who you are, rather as super religious, someone who wants to go to church every Sunday, someone who believes that they are going to go to hell for being themselves because someone believes this with their faith. This is their practice, and it is damaging to that person. Even the adults who go through this still, and it takes them a long time to really find themselves, right? So I had to go through all of that, and it was one of the most painful experiences of my life, because I was literally almost not sure of who the hell I was. I was literally unaware of my world that I thought was my world, to a point where nothing felt real, not even my parents. I literally had to lose everything I thought I knew in order for me to start hearing the truth of who I am and learning on my own what really is wholeness and what really feels peaceful to me. And I had to find my true mind. And yes, I went through the steps of therapy, psychiatry, and all of that process of healing the mind and embracing the person that I had to get to know, that was already within. I had to move everyone's perspectives and feelings about, you know, who I am, or who any, you know, person who was different to them or odd to them, and embrace all of those things. See, you have to move those things out of, you know, your mind. That's, like I said, how these younger, you know, 20-something-year-olds and teenagers are walking around unaware of who they are, because they're trying to find meaning in life through the things that they see on TikTok, through the things that they are seeing in their environment. And until somebody is able to really truly tell them the best person in the world for you to be influenced by and find meaning is in your heart. That's what matters. The person that you know you are in your heart. Embrace yourself. Embrace your gifts and abilities. Embrace yourself. You have to be that person. Most times, once you start coming into your 20s, you are slowly becoming your own person. And I believe that I had to lose that adolescent consciousness of what my mom and dad and my aunties and all these other people thought, was going to be, and from their perspectives, and find my own perspective. And I had to go through the same thing starting in my 30s. I had to start, developing healthier thoughts and healthier ways of the way that life is, and what is wholeness and what is love. Doing magical spells for those of you who are influenced by witchcraft and magic. I had to grow up out of that. And what I mean by that is the only magic that you should practice is the magic of transforming oneself. That doesn't take any tool. That doesn't take any instrument. That takes the willpower of telling yourself, I am ready to make a transformation. I am ready to do what is healthy for my purpose and what is in alignment for my purpose. Because when you do that spell on that man or that woman for love or to cause harm, the only person that is being harmed is you. The only person that spell is working on is you. The only person that is going to do the most damage to is you. Yes. So the only true magic is manifesting in the mind who you know you are to be, that is healthy and in alignment. Realizing that you are already fulfilled and whole. Your mind isn't gone. You're coming into the mind of oneness with the infinite super mind. That is who you are always. You can never lose that. You can never lose that. So I want to speak, though, because I know there are people that are going to come in here, and people are always going to have their opinions on LGBTQ plus people. I am the voice and one of the many voices that are going to give you a spiritual and motivating aspect of whom I see LGBTQ plus people to be. Don't get me wrong, we all will always have our own opinions. We will always have a different perspective because we don't all see things the same within that community. We don't. And it's okay because everybody's perspective, gay, straight, no matter what, is necessary. But still take your perspective and others, apply it with how it works for you. Just be a good listener. We are naturally born. I'm reading some notes that I took down, and I'm going to drop some other facts on you. We are naturally born consciously and spiritually fluid, speaking of LGBTQ plus people, in a non-dualistic nature, with feminine and masculine nature. And we live our lives naturally non-dualistic. We can live that way without trying. And for a lot of people who I'll say call themselves spiritualist, priestess, and you are having an issue with the fact that I'll say mostly you're transphobic, a lot of you. And I'm not really going to say homophobic because I know that some of you, can kind of get through that one, but you are very transphobic. And what's sickening to that is a lot of you want to give your libations, give your offerings to deities and beings who within themselves are said to be able to be transgender themselves and are able to be intersex and be part of both masculine and feminine energies. And what trips me out is a lot of you walk around here claiming to be protected by these beings and claim that these beings got your back, and you highly speak of these beings, but you have an issue with the fact that some people reconstruct their bodies and say that what's wrong with what the Creator created. Well, let me enlighten you. The Creator is all consciousness. Creation is always creating itself, right? And if these same beings that you speak of actually can transform themselves into a transgendered being at any other time. Yeah, they really can. So what you are showing is really your ignorance and really how you truly feel. I would say you show your teeth, really. You start to show your teeth. And you can't be one way and speak about oneness. And I'm not just directing this towards one person. I'm saying for those who, in that arena, in any spiritual arena at this point, you have to be able to listen to yourself sometimes. Literally listen to yourself. One thing about me, when I do a podcast or a video, I listen back a few times to myself. I will replay, what I've said to make sure that it's not too biased, and it's not to hurt anybody, and that I said it in good taste. People would argue about the science behind transgendered people when nobody has the audacity to question the science of the way that the body when you are deceased is handled, which comes from out of Egypt, right? And nobody questions how the body is scientifically preserved. But some people believe that their body shouldn't be worked on and no chemicals should be in it, and that their body should be put in the ground and naturally rot and become one with the earth again, right? But you can't do anything about that because that is just the way that they do things here. And at least in America, I know they do it for the most part. I can't speak for other countries. Now, what people, I think, spiritualists really have a problem with is the fact that they know that a lot of us are born powerful more than any other genetic male or female because We are the full manifest of the divine. And what I mean by the full manifest, we are expressions of the divine in its entireness, in its wholeness, in its intersex, in its transgenderism. Yes, in its transgenderism. Because if the infinite source didn't express itself in transgenderism, you wouldn't have many male or females or any other beings at all. It splits itself that way. Most of you have to go through deep meditation and psychedelics to even start to get this information, whereas we are born to consciously think this way. It is our natural born nature to be spiritually aligned within the oneness of infinity. Remember that these beings are two-spirited, and they have been protecting you, like you say, in the sacred and the collective, on the behalf of many people. If anything, you should learn to live as LGBTQ plus people, being free to themselves and non-gender bias. We live this and we are this. We are everything you are aspiring to be, and that's truly free to be free, fluidly and consciously and spiritually. Because we are hated and judged and misunderstood for just being, and being able to own our true nature and have to be murdered for it, bullied and tormented for it. That builds a powerful spirit within itself. For those who call our life a choice, the only choice made is the one prior to carnating on this earth. The life we choose to have, yes, we choose that before our birth. And once we are birthed through our mother's wombs, we are therefore born this way. What some of these people are truly mad about is the fact that they cannot use racial or homophobic or transphobic slurs anymore without there being a consequence for it. Many of you are really upset, and I've come to that conclusion. I've noticed that many of you are really truly upset because the consciousness has evolved, and as much as you want to call yourself conscious, and as much as you want to call yourself so spiritual, and so evolved, and so fifth dimensional, what you really are mad about is that people don't speak the way that they used to speak, and you'll scream about free speech, but what you want to really scream is hate speech. But you can't do that without there being consequences at the job, on your podcast, on your social media platforms. You're really mad because you can't say what you wish you could say. And that's not oneness. That's not divine. That's ignorance, and that's hatred. Now, I'm going to drop some jewels on you, and I'm not going to be before you too long after this. I'm going to drop some knowledge from the West African region, because there are many historical evidence that proves that LGBTQ plus people have been here a long time, and that proves that the infinite one clearly expresses itself in a fluid way. So this has come from out of West African mysticism, from the Yoruba and the Homian and Vodun faiths. There is a celestial creator deity known as Maulisa, who was formed by a merge between twin brother and sister gods, Lisa, known as the moon, this is celestial gods, the moon, and Mawa, the sun, Mawa being the male aspect of the other twin. Combined, they are presented as intersex or transgender. Nanu Baluku, the great mother that gave birth to Lisa and Mawa, and created the universe and contains both male and female essences. You hear that? The great mother that Nanu Buluku is the great mother that gave birth to Lisa and Mawa and created the universe. It contains both male and female essences. That's just an African perspective way of saying the creator itself, the female aspect of the creator, created the universe. And it is to have both male and female essences. The Akan people of Ghana have a pantheon of gods. With that, they have different personas of the celestial bodies, and they manifest as androgynous or transgender deities. And this is talking about like planets. And here it says their names are Abreo, which is the planet Jupiter, Aku, the planet Mercury, Awu, the moon. So before I go any further, that is proving that from an African perspective, they already look at things as transgendered or intersex and fluid. And for some of the psychiatrists and psychologists, they would say that most of us look at things from what our minds may want to perceive. But you can't talk two different ways, baby girl, baby boy, whomever, because therefore, if you so supposedly look at things as one, then that must mean that this one superconscious mind that we all share clearly sees things as transgendered, intersex, and blended into one, no matter what it is calling itself. Even in the Vodun tradition, possession by spirits are in mostly women, but also in men. Both genders are regarded as brides of the spirit that they are possessed by. In Zimbabwe, Maori rules over the Shona people. Maori splits into separate male and female aspects. So this is all to say, well, what is your point? My point is, these are this is the knowledge that has not been passed down to, I would say, a lot of people who grew up in religious families, who grew up, around people who are just homophobic, transphobic, and not educating themselves. And of course, just the way that times were before people started to learn these things. And this is when we get back to oneness. And we're talking about oneness, and everybody's speaking of the one mind, for those who believe that. If you believe in the one mind and oneness, you need to be able to, recognize and realize that it is not a choice to be LGBTQ+. Yes, it is a choice to come here and experience this life, but remember that in Africa, they actually look at people who are same-sex attracted as the most powerful beings because of those traditions. Those are first traditions in Africa. Africa's the first region of life itself. So that's real ancient. Even to this day. And you won't know every bit of their oral traditions, or any other country who keeps oral tradition private. You won't know all of their traditions. We here in the western part of the world, we are starting to catch up. And a lot of people have issues with the way that these young kids are expressing themselves. And I'll give it, yes, everybody's kind of doing the same things. But if you remember, these are star seeds and star seed souls. These are people who never had a human experience to begin with. So therefore, if they're picking up all of this information overload, maybe they want to remember who they are. Maybe they can't exactly remember when they're in here, and they can't see everything, not even under a microscope. So some things, yes, they are picking up and mimicking. And for those who are younger and you hear my voice, know that there's nothing wrong with the fact that you want to learn. Just be sure to be in tune with your own spiritual technology. Be in tune with your own self. your own inner self, the person that you already are. You don't have to read every single book. You don't have to follow every single, religion or spiritual practice. You cannot believe in anything and find meaning in life by being the person that you love to be. And that's still oneness. You're still a spiritual being. You're already still spiritual no matter what. Being in touch with your own self, your own spiritual software. That is important. And this is knowledge that I gained too over time, but I'm also trying to pick up my own knowledge from within. It's already there, star seeds. You're born with it. You don't come from here. You're not local. You're non-local beings. So you already have it within you. In this life, we are born with a powerful connection to Source, with a joy that nobody can take from you. But when so many people living outside of themselves cause so many walls to build up all around you till they sculpt you in their image, till one day you begin to peel back the layers of yourself like an orange, so that you find your seed of truth and plant that seed till you grow your own fruit and crops. That's when you go from an orange to a lotus flower and live authentically and be and feel beautiful and free to be the flower that blooms under the sun and that others admire so much. Be yourself. Embrace yourself. The only thing that you are losing is other people's thoughts of what you should be. Your mind can never leave, because the one mind always is and forever will be. And so will you. All right. So, where can you find me other than this space here? You can find me at my YouTube channel, Soul Star Insight. I do mostly short videos every other day for divine insight, card readings. I'm not selling readings. I just do it for daily information, or every other day, divine information. And that is where you can catch me. And of course, this podcast, which will also be posted up on Spreaker. So I hope that someone at least was inspired by this conversation. And until the next time, be you, be free, and realize how amazing and infinitely one you truly are. And realize that the infinite creator, however you identify God as, created itself in you, and even if it's recreating itself through you, physically and mentally, who are we to judge and question? All right, until next time, you guys, keep loving. That's all it takes. Keep loving, and keep loving yourselves, most importantly.